Mic check, 1, 2, this ain't a pull track or crew. This warehouse 15, but legends speak true. 3 rings on my fingers, gold medals gleam. But under this armor, life ain't always what it seemed. Yeah, we trained hard, pushed limits, reached the peak. But the pressure cooker boiled, man, so weeks I couldn't speak. Sponsorships and smiles, hiding the inner fight. Sacrifices made, lonely days.
Well, we're back. This is episode 2, and it's not going to change. It's just going to get better. This is the Warehouse 15, and 3 Olympians, 3 coaches, 3 athletes.
Oh, how about that gold, silver, and bronze? Dang, that's crazy.
No, that's rough.
We covered the spectrum. We covered the spectrum.
Just remember, I didn't say that.
I
But
said it.
but we are keeping we are keeping it real. So when you get a chance to compete at that level, it doesn't matter what you bring home. It matters what you did on the way. It matters how it changed your life. And for the 3 individuals on this, I'm Herb Perez. We got Juan Moreno with us, and we got TJ Jennings, and nobody better. Couldn't think of 3 better people, excluding myself, of course, to talk about it, because we're going to keep it real. But it's going to be personal. And if you take it personally, that's okay, because this wasn't meant to be nice. It wasn't meant to be bad. It's just meant to be real. And with that, first, I'd like to welcome you all here. Mr. Moreno, what's going on today, Coach?
Hey, everything's good, man. Happy to be here back in number 2. We're just going to keep building this. And I love when you say take it personal, because for some reason we're in this little world where everybody takes it personal for the wrong reasons. Why not take it personal to make you better, to empower you? And, that's always okay. But, it's a new day. It's a new day, man. Gloves came off. Let's have some fun. Let's talk about this.
That's what I like about it. Again, this is literally almost 3 generations of Taekwondo here. We came from 3 close but slightly separate generations. And Mr. Jennings, Coach, what do you have to say for us today?
I like to think I'm a blend of all 3. I got a chance to fight with the regular Hogus, the no Hogus, the point system on the screen, the paper system, all the way to electronics. So I'm always excited to sit down and have a conversation with you guys about the past of Taekwondo, the future of Taekwondo, and like the current of Taekwondo. So looking forward to our topic today.
Well, I know it's not the subject, but I like how we all blend together. You're right. Herb, you were one of my mentors, right? And then you kind of saw me making teams, and then as you filtered out, then I was an athlete and a coach, and same thing. I got to work with TJ. So it's interesting how our generations do overlap. Sidebar. Sorry about that.
No, that's exactly why it matters. I mean, we were here. We've been here for quite some time. You guys are still there, still coaching, and I'm doing some other stuff within the sport in a different way. And I think that's what matters. I like this group because we can speak authoritatively. We can speak about it in an experiential sense. But more importantly, we can put a perspective that others may not have had. And the reason for that is we were at it and doing it at the highest level at every stage of the game, when it was a full contact sport with chest protectors and barely some equipment to protect you, when knockouts were not rare, but were very prevalent. And then we moved into those other areas where it started to deal with the referee issues, and they got into electronics, and then virtually we are now. And realistically, we are where we are now, which is, we're going to talk about that today. With that segue, though, let's talk a little bit about that today. Where do we find ourselves now in 2024, and what was last year like? And more importantly, what does that say for the future? But let's start with where we are now. What's going on now?
I'll let you start first, sir.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, 12 years into electronics, right? I mean, we started in 2012. No, I'm sorry, that's not true. From the Olympic Games, 2012. It started in 2008. So it's been, quite a long time. There's been different generations of it. It's improved, but in my opinion, not improved nearly enough. By virtue of having to, video replay cards and look for all these little minute touches and points. So we are definitely in a better electronic age. I think that some of the new systems that are coming out of China and Korea are trying to blend maybe some, and I even hate this term, and TJ, we've talked about this a lot. I hate old school, new school terms. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the modern current day has blended some things from the past generations, whatever generation you want, I guess, because people older than you, Herb, would say, old school is the 70s. You say old school is the 80s and 90s, and TJ may say the old school is 2000. So it's all relevant. But my point is, I think the electronics have developed enough, and the athletes and coaches have developed enough that you're starting to see a pretty interesting blend worldwide. Not good enough yet for the system, and we can get into that in a second, but I think that's where we're at right now, in my opinion.
CJ?
Nah, I would agree. I think like for me, I'm a toss up. I kind of enjoy the electronics era of this game, and at the same time I do miss the mindset that came with the older style game. When I say older style game, I mean I'm going all the way back to when we just did paper scoring and you didn't know what the score was until the end of the round was over. So your mentality then was to finish this person. I mean, I've you go through matches where you beat this kid up and it's 1-0 and you got to go back and do it all again. And you kicked them 99 times, but you got 1 point for that whole round. So it twisted your mind a little bit to know that I have to keep going forward. I got to keep fighting and I got to make sure this fight sways in my direction. So I think now, simply because, I mean, you go from that generation to the scoring on the screen generation, it makes it completely different too. Seeing that immediate response of, oh, I scored. So I think it's just changed the dynamic of obviously the sport, but also the athlete. We never thought about maintaining points back then. We never were trying not to get scored on. We were just trying to score and score and score. And
Good point.
I think you have a mix of that now with some of the countries that kick a lot, but at the same time, it's very easy to sit for 30, 40 seconds when you're up by 5 and 6 and know this person has to cover ground. Before, we didn't have that luxury. So me, I go back and forth with it a little bit when I'm training my guys. I try to get them focused on, look, we always have to put the pressure a little bit, whether it's with our motion and movement and all that stuff like that. But definitely, like Coach Moreno just said, I think we're in a better era. I mean, I went through the one where there was, you remember, we had to like protest all the headshots. You had to ask for all the headshots, and the referees were scoring it, just the headshots. And I lost a lot of matches just simply because the crowd cheers and their foot goes flying over your head. You know what I mean? So I think we're at a better place, but like you said, definitely not perfect, definitely not close. So hopefully we keep changing and progressing through this whole process.
Well, I don't watch. I mean, I got to be honest. I try to watch and do my best to watch, and I would argue it's gotten better. I think one of the challenges is, remember how we got here. We got here because they couldn't find referees who could score the matches accurately or fairly. And so when we were competing, and like you said, you'd fight a fight and it would be 1-0 after you scored, 10 points or 3 points or 5 points. The next round would be 0-1 for the other guy. And so you'd find yourself in really a 10-point must system. Now, you obviously did more than that, and you obviously scored more points than that. And I can remember one match in particular for Coach Moreno, and I can definitely remember at least one for myself, where the outcome of the scoreboard didn't match the outcome of what we did on the mat. And that was because the match was preordained by the Koreans in Korea, and they needed their win, and they were going to get their win however they got it, whether that was by pruning the tree, as they say, which is they would knock you out early if they got you, or if they did it actually in a final or in a semifinal. And that's unfortunate because that lack of ethics and morals and scruples caused us to have to use what I would call a substandard method of scoring. And I was, as you guys know, one of the guys who created that system for scoring. And the multi-point scoring system was not meant to be used with electronic scoring. It was meant to be used for referees. If the guy kicks somebody in the face, we said, give him 5 points. He kicks him with a body kick that's turning, give him 3 points. He does a regular round kick, give him 2 points. And if he punches, do 1 point. And with a jump, there was an additional point. And that's how you got to 5 for the face kicks. But then they came up with these electronic scoring things, which when you first saw them, I don't remember if you were on that trip or not, there was a junior trip that went to Vietnam, and they had a clown show. They have the 3-ring circus, and at the end they bring out the clown show, and there's a clown car. It was a clown show. I mean, we were laughing. And I got to be honest.
I swear, when I saw that, and I actually saw one in Korea as well, I went there to watch it, and I was like, this will never make it. I remember saying that to the CEO at the time, who was Dave Askin. I said, this will never fly, because it was so bad. It was such a joke.
They were skating across the floor. And then, my favorite moment is with Jungkook Young and I, and we're sitting at the World Championships in Copenhagen, and we're watching this, and we're sitting with whoever the provider was then, whether it was LaJust or whoever. And he's telling us how they've been doing all this testing, and it's better, and this is good. And we're sitting there, and Jungkook Young and I were watching this match, and the guy, one of the heavyweights, it might have been from Cuba or something, hits this guy with a bomb to the body. I mean, just huge sound. and no point goes up.
Yeah.
And so we look at him and Jungkook Young goes to him, okay, you need to go back to the laboratory until that's a point, right? And it's true, right? So as far as where we are now, one of the challenges is that you don't want to give the referees the power to wave off something that wasn't a technique. So now you have something where a guy sticks his arm out straight, touches the hogu, even if it's with the right amount of contact, or a foot, which you've seen before, and the foot and the wet hand thing scores a point, and the referee can't wave that off. And so non-techniques that wouldn't put, Taekwondo was originally a full contact martial art. The idea was you kick somebody, it hurt, and there was a reason you got a point. It was enough force or power, trembling shock, that it caused your opponent to be injured or damaged. And that's not happening. I don't see it with the electronics, but you guys are in the ring more than me, so I'd like to hear from you.
No, you're right. You're right. But what I'll say is, it's interesting. First of all, let's be honest. There's not another martial art discipline that is scored by electronics other than fencing. Not judo, not jiu-jitsu, not boxing, not wrestling, not Greco wrestling, and except for Taekwondo. Now, with the striking arts, boxing, kickboxing, things like that. I mean, again, nobody uses an electronic apparatus, not correct. Nobody. So it's interesting because, I mean, again, I'm beating a dead horse because we're probably never going to go back, but still, to think that our human natured people in our sport weren't able to judge this consistently, fairly, it's a shame. But that being said,
hit that for a minute. So what would happen in basketball or football, professional football, basketball, or any professional sport, if a referee was incapable of judging the match fairly? You know where those referees go?
Nowhere. That's every sport right now. You watch football, you watch basketball. I'm gonna go on a side and tell you referees just suck in general most of the time. Like, it's not, and maybe it's they missed it, maybe they didn't see it, maybe they interpreted it a little differently. But honestly, it happens across a lot of sports where you see a lot of bad calls and things. I'll go back just a little bit to this conversation. I'm gonna say when I used to fight Mark Lopez back in the day, the electronics for me gave me a window to win. I don't think I was gonna be allowed to win without the electronics. It was a point in time where me and him would fight and I would hit him a lot. I would score points and it was 0-0. It was 2-0 him. It was 1-0 him. So when the electronics came around, it gave me enough of an edge, enough of fairness, I don't know what you call it, to be able to put myself on that Olympic team and to make, multiple world championship teams and, the national teams. But before that, it was a little tough. If it was
actually, that's what the Europeans say too right now. The Europeans, I mean, countries like Serbia and Croatia, small countries, never were significant in Taekwondo. And some of it was talent, some of it was pool, some of it was coaching, but some of it was just the unfair biasness to some of the bigger European countries. And so when electronics came out, now we're seeing countries like Serbia and Croatia and Bosnia, and all of a sudden they have some Olympic gold medalists. And so I don't know what that means, but I mean, actually, that's a really good point, TJ, because listen, Mark Lopez was a great fighter, but it would have been very interesting to know what those matches would have looked like pre-Olympics, or I'm sorry, pre-electronics with electronics. I mean, again, power, this and that, but there were some times, and we saw, I mean, that's just your match, but I've been to U.S. team trials when I wasn't fighting. And I watched some high-level people from one club and fighting high-level people from another club, and one club wasn't going to win. I mean, shoes on the other foot. The Lopez group, I mean, they couldn't win to save their life. It was just the fix was in. The match, the points weren't going up. The Kabjans came at the wrong time. It was crazy, but
the corruption that used to happen, I remember being in '87 and the U.S. team captain lost the match to Mark Isbester. Mark Isbester won the match clearly. Won the match. They raised his hand. All of a sudden, there was a phone call made to the then president of USA Taekwondo, and there was a room. Everybody went into a room, and an hour later came out, and that match was overturned, even though it had been appealed and the appeal was lost.
Oh, so they left already?
They left already. They came back, and this individual changed that. That's why we have this system, because systemically, the organization was unable to, they changed the outcome of that match so that that person could go to the Pan Am Games. So had
So
that person lost to Pan Am, had lost at that match to Mark Isbester, well-known fact, they went into a room, came back, U.S. team captain, all of a sudden the decision was returned. He got to fight the rest of the day. And, you know, that's not the first time that that's happened. There are many times, you know, there were great fighters out of Oregon that couldn't win a match, couldn't do anything to win a match. Mike Kanda, for example, and guys like this. So, you
okay, I
know,
remember guys.
there's no doubt that there were, you know, historically, you fought Korea, you score 5 points, you might get one.
Right.
You
So
score
let me
one,
ask
you
you,
get
so
none.
all that being said, as much as and we could talk about the styles of the athletes and stuff like that, because I know we have some different opinions, but we could talk about it, professionally. But all that you just said, all that TJ just said, are we better off now?
As
Oh,
far as the system, mm, I,
If
I
fairly,
yeah, I would say no. I would say no. I mean, again, I get the human error and I get the human bias and I get at least I'm gonna say this. At least you say, you score 5 points on Korea, you get 1 point. At least I knew that's what the ratio was. Like I know I got to go in there and do a little bit more to win this match, and I know that before we got there. I knew that while I was training. I knew that before I got on the plane.
yeah,
I knew it.
yeah.
But with the electronic system now, I mean, I've coached and I've fought. Obviously, I've used it to fight, but just I think coaching, you get a different look at it too. There's a lot of discrepancies in like the Hogu system that just change matches. I mean, you don't know what's gonna
Well, is
score.
it
You
is
don't
it the
know.
essence of Taekwondo? So that's my only point. And listen,
no,
the
you're
fair, it's equally unfair for everybody. That's the best I've heard. But here's the reality. So I won internationally, not because I was the best fighter, but because it was so hard for me to get out of the country. The amount of cheating and
Mm,
nepotism, and I could give you the list, but history's written itself. I'm not going to grouse about the past, but for me to get out of the country, for Juan Moreno to get out of the country past the self-interested, mostly Korean instructors with Korean students and sons, to be frank, in my situation, on a couple of occasions, actually on both occasions, with their personal sons, and then they're the head of the referee corps. For me to get out of the country, I had to beat those guys by 5 and 6 points. And that's the way I got out of the country. So by the time I went to international, it was actually kind of cool because I'm like, oh, this is going to be fairer. And I'm only going to have to worry about Korea, where that's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the technical, and this is my only point on this, the technical regimen of the United States and its athletes has diminished. And they're athletically, you can argue better shape, more talented, taller, smaller, definitely not better looking than us three, but they can work on that. But their technical regimen hasn't improved. And the reason is it's not forced to improve. When you're put in the crucible and you got to fight a guy like Naeem Hassan or John Lee or Scott Rohr or Scott Moranti or any of the athletes I could name that I fought, you better show up. You better show up and you better be good, because they're not kicking to put their hand on your chest protector and wet their palm and get a point. They're not trying to sweep their foot over your head with monkey kick or whatever, weasel kick. They're trying to kill you. They're trying to hit you so hard that you go home in a
but
box, and that's
let,
reality.
I mean, okay, so I mean, we could talk about the system, we could talk about the referees, we could talk about if we're better or worse. Let's talk about, since the electronic age started,
Okay.
let's bring it back to this country. Where we started, let's just say 2012, into where we are now, 2024. That's 12 years, right? That's quite a bit, of Olympic cycles, 12, 16, 21, and 24. We're on our fourth cycle. Better, worse, even, because I want to get back to something you said about our technique development, but I'll throw that question out there to you guys first. Where do you think we're at?
TJ.
For me, I feel like we used to have more of an identity. I felt like, we had I don't know where we stand, to be honest with you. I think we're in the mix. I think we're involved, but are we scary? Are we great? I think the biggest thing for me was always that hope that day we show up to tournaments and the world was afraid of us. I don't feel like we're no closer to that now than listen, I feel like we had some strong teams before, and I'm not saying the teams that show up to the world championships are not strong now or competitive now, but the goal was always supposed to be for us to be the most dominant country at the competition, and that's what we showed up to do, and that's what we showed up to always to show everyone that feeling was there, that the thought was there, and like you said, um, a few minutes ago, to get out of the country was something scary. To get out of the country, when I left, when I actually got out, I felt like I was a superhero. I felt like I could beat anybody because I knew what I had been through in this country, the names I had to beat, the people I had to beat, the number of times I had to beat them. I mean, I go back to, for me, my Olympic process. Got a medal at the Olympic Games and came back and fought another World Championships team trials. Like, it was immediate. There was no, when you talk about, putting you through the grinder or putting you into the mix, there was no protection whatsoever. You did it, you had to go do it again. You had to do it again and again and again. And that gave me, again, my edge for the amount of time I had it. That gave me my edge, that the confidence has. But as far as I think we've lost that. I think that's not there anymore. I don't think we have the depth in divisions. I don't think we have the depth in development. I don't think we have a lot of things that got us to that point of looking to your left and to your right. And I know you named some names that these guys are all scared. Everyone in your division could go out there and, put up 100 points. They could go out there and fight. They can go out there and put you away. So you had to be ready and willing to fight every single person. So for me, I don't think we're any closer. Definitely not better.
I think everybody in all our divisions. I mean, it was a different generation of athletes, but I mean, it's an interesting question. So, I mean, Coach, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it's better, worse? What do you think?
Well, I mean, listen, I think there's a lot of different ways you can look at it. I think number one, you could just look at medal production. Okay, in 12 we had 2 medals. 24 we had 1, right? And you just keep going back, and it was only been one. So I think just on production, I don't care if you like it or you don't like it, it's less production. So that would be a thumbs down. I think that you're right, TJ, that there was a moment in your era, certainly in my era, and I know in their era. When the United States walked in, people are a little bit shook. When people looked at the draws, they were like, oh shit, there he is. So I don't think that happens much anymore. There might be 1 or 2 that kind of raise the eyebrow and go, dang, I thought I would get him later. So that's not good. You want to say something?
I know, I was about to say, I miss, you know what it was too? I think to kind of get into that, I miss random draws. I miss showing up to the World Championships and showing up to these big tournaments, and there was no way anybody's protected. You're not separating number 1, number 2, number 3,
Yeah.
number 4. It was irrelevant. I think that also plays a big part of it now. The rank system and knowing exactly where you fall, who you fall against, and it creates this different dynamic of competition.
But I'll get to my last point. So the results are down. I'm gonna just say the feeling is definitely not there. I mean, I coach for another country. I mean, yeah, I mean, you're not necessarily worried. I'm not saying we're gonna win all the time, but it is what it is. And I would think that the rest of the world feels the same way. But I'm gonna get to the most important point. And I learned this from my predecessors. Some wise guy told me he would go to Korea back in the day to not learn how to be a Korean, but learn how to beat the Koreans. That guy over there, that ugly old guy right there. I remember you saying that. I swear I remember you saying that. And I think, TJ, think about it right now. Everybody wants to copy this style in Spain, or this style in France, or this style in GB, or this style in Croatia. That's all we're doing. We're bad imitations. We're bad imitations. And if we're just trying to learn from them and catch them and try to be like them and do the same shit as them, how the hell are we going to beat them? They're laughing at us. They're just going, oh yeah, we did that last year. We're doing this year. We're just always a click behind. And so when I see the kids and the coaches, they're pretty good. They kind of know what they're doing, but they're just one step behind. Someone's going to have some balls and just say, you know what? We got to have our own system. Again, self-serving. There was a time when I was working with the organization, and I remember one of our main focus was, what's our identity? What do we want to look like? What do we want the athletes to be like? And unless I've been missing something, I don't know what the identity is. And I heard this thing, pick a fight. Oh, let's go pick a fight today. That's their mantra, or some people's mantras. I'm like, okay, you're not picking too good of fights because you're getting beat up, and I hate to say that. I mean, listen, I bleed, red, white, and blue, but I don't want to be Debbie Downer and stuff like that, but somehow some way. We gotta be better. They gotta be
So
better.
I put a picture of this is the US team trials for next year. And as you can tell, he's got
Take that down, because I'm right
he's
by
got
your face. I don't want
he's
to see
got
that.
he's got some cojones. But that's what it's turned into. It's turned into ballet, right? So I'm gonna change it now. I just had to put it up. But you know, I've said this for a long time. The technical regimen, you know, I think we can agree has changed. What better or worse, you can argue. I always hear when I talk, you know, coach, when I talk to you, you're always telling me, hey, these guys are better. They're really athletic and they're good and in practice. I'm going to tell you something. I haven't seen a back kick, like a real back kick. I haven't seen anybody practice it. And when you don't practice it, you lose it. You don't use it, you lose it. And that's kind of everything in life, including this area here.
But it's like all the kicks, Young. It's
Oh, yeah.
they can back kick. They just don't back kick with the intent to like kill anybody, because there's no need, there's no value. I mean, I teach on electronics.
They're back hook kicking the body, right? Which, you know, if you did that to us when we were fighting, you know, I'd punch you in the foot. But
it wouldn't be rewarded, so you wouldn't do it. That's
this is the point right now, is they're rewarding what I don't blame the athletes. What they reward is what you're going to do. So if they reward it, that's what you do. Then I have no issue with that. But the question becomes, stepping has gone away. The regimen of Taekwondo that utilized stepping and multiple kicking has gone away. This idea of what they call, which was actually made illegal when we were fighting, canceling, this leg canceling nonsense. It was made illegal because they knew what they would do to the game. They knew it would ruin the game. If you allowed people to lift their leg and leg check or kick under a leg and do all that, it would ruin the game. Now, I'm not talking about strictly lifting your leg under a kick to thwart it, right? The abductor, adductor muscles aren't strong enough to withstand that, so it ruins that. And so then you go back to, okay, so if you're going to make the argument, you got to first understand fundamentally what is Taekwondo. If you're going to say we want to focus on kicking, then you focus on kicking and just strong punching. You focus on those two things. But then if you lift your leg and you just touch a chest protector without bending your knee, without any force, but you make enough contact to make a point happen, that's not really the essence of Taekwondo. Taekwondo is either a full contact martial art that is deadly in its intent and deadly in its ability, or it's not. If it's a game of tag, then we're no different than point karate and any other sport that uses. And so I don't disagree. You can make the rules fair. It's equally as fair and sucky for everyone, but it hasn't helped Taekwondo grow. And I'll give you my final example, and then I'll stop talking. Watch 1980, watch a game of basketball from 1980, watch a game of football from 1980, watch a game of a match of boxing from 1980, and then watch one in 2024. And tell me what the difference is, and watch Taekwondo. If you watch Taekwondo at the 88 Olympics, for example, and you watch 2024, and you do the same with basketball, you'll see an evolution and a escalation and increase in technical acumen for everything that I've mentioned, with the exception of one. Taekwondo has de-evolved. Its technical regimen has de-evolved. Its stepping, its strategic component has de-evolved. And it's because once you change the rules to ignore what you're trying to reward, if you don't understand what you are, then you can't create a system to reward it. So you have to say to yourself, what is Taekwondo and what is Taekwondo competition? And if you say to yourself, it's a full contact martial art where kicks hit with enough power to cause damage, and that's why we need to wear a chest protector and headgear, then that's what it is. If you say that's not the case, then take off the chest protector, make an electronic sensor on the chest, take off, you have a helmet, it's the same thing, because all you have to do is touch enough to make a game. And that's called a game. That's a game, not a fight. So I still believe Taekwondo should be a fight, and it should be rewarded as such.
I agree. I'm gonna go from where you started. I think at the highest levels is not what bothers me. I think honestly, if you're watching enough matches at the highest level, you see great athletes, you see great movement, you see some good.
My check, 1, 2, this ain't no pool tracker crew, this warehouse 15, but legends speak true. 3 rings on my fingers, gold medals gleam, but under this armor, life ain't always what it seemed. Yeah, we trained hard, pushed limits, reached the peak, but the pressure cooker boiled, man, so weeks I couldn't speak. Sponsorships and smiles, hiding the inner fight, sacrifices made, lonely days.